Yo, what's up guys, it's your boy, Skitsomanic here, the Insane Game Manic, back at it again with another video, boy! Yeah, I know we had to do it again. So, because there's no Pokemon episodes and there's no Snafu episodes, content was going to be dry on here. So I wanted to put out something and to kind of hit a string of videos and see how you guys feel. So there's going to be a lot of experimentation in the next few videos as I kind of like come up with ideas while also like transitioning through this whole time period. Because if you say the word, it fucks up ad revenue. I'll just say that. So one of the things I was going to do was a video on specifically Demon Slayer and its ending, and then I realized that it kind of, the issue I have with Demon Slayer is technically present in the other two modern traditional shonen manga, which I would say would be like Black Clover and My Hero, because Promised Neverland isn't what I consider traditional shonen, and neither is Dr. Stone. And I also don't think they usually have the opposite problem, especially Dr. Stone. Dr. Stone sometimes comes off slow. My biggest problem with like the current, using My Hero, Demon Slayer, and Black Clover as my examples, these are the three shows that suffer from like fast pacing. And it's for different reasons. Like I think each show has a problem with fast pacing, but it's all in different ways. Like, in the sense that, like, Black Clover's problem, for example, with fast pacing, is that Black Clover doesn't give itself any time to breathe and chill and to have dead moments. My Hero and Demon Slayer have these. My Hero has the most of them. My Hero still doesn't have a lot. Black Clover barely has any. like, I can't even, if I'm going through all the major arcs in the manga, there's only like, I think the biggest break we got is what's recently happened in the anime, like after the whole Devil Elf saga. Like, we've had in the manga, there was only like maybe 3 or 4 chapters worth of chill, and then it went right back into some new shit. And even then, all those things were still plot related to the main plot going on. My Hero will literally have dead episodes. Black Clover only had like 3 or 4 episodes that even constituted as like chill, relaxed time, and even then, those episodes all had some level of correlation to like the main plot, so they never had any real downtime that was more focused on like comedy and just kind of like subtle shit. My Hero has these, and even then, My Hero doesn't have a lot of them, but at least they have a couple. Demon Slayer, I don't think has really any. I mean, well, it kind of does, but it's always mixed in with like training arcs. Like arcs where either they're recovering or arcs where they're like training / recovering. So it technically counts, but not really though, because it's still plot related. And the thing about fast pacing, I think Demon Slayer, of the 3 of them, suffers the most from it. Demon Slayer is a manga that is about to end. As I'm recording this video, I think Demon Slayer ends within like the next chapter or so. And what trips me out, and I said this in the Demon Slayer video a few weeks back, Demon Slayer could have easily been longer and probably been a better manga for it. Now, granted, I debated on talking about Demon Slayer in that extent because I wasn't sure what the last few chapters were going to be. But I don't think it's not going to change the arcs that have already happened and how things have transpired so far. The biggest problem with Demon Slayer's way of handling shit is that Demon Slayer is a very like get in, get out. Like, Demon Slayer is very much of the show where it's like, listen, I'm gonna get in, tell a really quick story. It's almost like the fucking Bakuman / Death Note approach, where they just want to get in and get out. Except Bakuman and Death Note took their time for the story. People would argue Death Note took too much time, and Bakuman in the same thing. And then like that's the whole point. Like, I get the idea that the problem with like old school shonens and old school shonen drags. I think One Piece is the most guilty of the bigger 3 of as far as dragging is concerned, but they all drag to some extent. And the idea with modern shonen, with like My Hero, then Black Clover, then Demon Slayer, is to very quickly get through arcs. And like I said, Demon Slayer really fucking suffers because it almost feels like you're skipping like development and shit. Like you're just flat out skipping development or plot points or setup. Like people gotta understand something. There's nothing wrong with slow paced shit if it's properly used, because people enjoyed Naruto the majority of it, I would say. People enjoy One Piece for the majority of it. Bleach, it was the same thing. The majority of Bleach people like. They don't mind slow paced shit if it leads to something. You get subtle character quirks and like subtle hints on the plot and the theming and shit going on. There's nothing wrong with having slow paced manga, but you have to write it correctly. And just like there's nothing wrong with having a fast paced manga, you have to write it correctly. And I don't think Demon Slayer, of the three of them, writes it the worst. Now granted, they all have problems with it, because Black Clover has its issues where you did a 6-month time skip, and realistically I feel like you should have fucking like gave us some chill time before the time skip happened and gave us some setup before the time skip happened. Like using One Piece as an example. Before One Piece's time skip setup, we'd already been getting hints of what the Straw Hats were doing and where they were at, and like these little hints of what the world was at. So like when the time skip happened, you weren't just going from like bam to bam. It was like all this shit in the plot had already happened, and now you get to jump 2 years in the future and see how everything has changed in those 2 years. Black Clover literally was like, you guys need to get stronger to deal with this demon, and I'm only giving you 6 months because I die in a year. And we were like, okay, cool. And then we jumped ahead, and now they have to do essentially what every other Shonen Jump manga does during a time skip. You have to now explain what happened. You get them in the form of flashbacks, and it works, but it's messier. My Heroes usually comes in the form of development too. Like for example, when I made the video about why I like Endeavor, the one thing about Endeavor's character I never understood is that like in the manga, it randomly felt like all of a sudden, like after the All Might versus All for One, that like Endeavor just had a switch up, and there was no like key event that happened. Like he didn't have a chapter or pages in a chapter devoted to him to make that transition seem normal. So it just fucking happened. They also do this thing where they kind of like split up My Hero by season. Even like the current arc in the manga literally feels like it came out of nowhere. And to be fair, it didn't, but it did. Like there was set up for it, but the way the manga kind of jumps off an arc and jumps into a new one, it's like bam, and you're like, what the fuck? Or you get like or when they randomly jumped ahead when Todoroki and Bakugo finally get their fucking licenses and all, and it's just like, and it's just in a random chapter. It's like bam, here's the chapter. My Hero does it like with random events. It doesn't do like the story itself is technically fast paced. I think My Hero also suffers from an issue of redundancy because it jumps very quickly between like an event and then back to training, then an event back to training, and the school shit feels redundant because it's all in that same bubble of like training to use a new move, training your skills, getting new outfits for the weather, like it feels kind of samey and shit. But it does suffer in its fast pacedness for different reasons. And I think that's an issue because everyone's like, oh, I grew up on the Narutos and the Bleaches and the One Pieces, and I'm just tired of everything moving slow. I'm tired of going through 5 chapters of Naruto in the same goddamn fight. I get it. I understand why people get tired of the slow pacedness. But I feel like the modern style of trying to like blitz through everything makes certain series weaker. Like I inherently believe that Demon Slayer is a weaker manga as it currently stands because they chose to just blaze through the fucking storylines. Some of these plot lines are so blazed through that there's random character development in the middle of like a final arc fight. I shouldn't be getting like base level character development at an end of manga fight. That's my problem. Some of these characters were like just introduced, or like this is their arc where they're fully in the arc the whole time, and now it's like, oh, by the way, here's your development for them, and you're like, but the manga's about to end, so do you like it? That's my problem. Like, and Demon Slayer also, but Demon Slayer is also the way it's structured makes it worse because it's a show that's very structured around the idea of like if you get fucked up in any like permanent way, like losing an arm or getting an eye cut, you automatically are like deemed, all right, you're done. You're not fighting anymore in the manga, and you're like, damn, that seems kind of fucking ridiculous. So it's jarring because Demon Slayer likes doing that a lot. Demon Slayer is very much of a fan of like just screwing characters over in mid arc, and it's like, you know that one arc they were introduced in, that's the last time you're gonna see them, and you're like, damn. Or the last time you're gonna see them fighting in the arc, and you're like, damn, that's crazy. Why is it so fast? I feel like that's my main thing. I've always said like fights are important to me in shonen. But, like, if you give me proper character development and, like, a build-up to it, it makes those moments hit so much harder. So, for example, in the Pain arc, right? Now, most of you should know the spoilers for the Pain arc, but, like, this was the slow build-up to the Pain arc. Now, granted, we'd already seen Pain's silhouette throughout the fucking series of Naruto. But Pain, we finally get to the arc, and it's, like, right after the arc where Naruto finally gets his shit together. Like, Naruto masters the Rasen Shuriken, and he helps take down Kakuzu, and I'm like, let's motherfucking go. Naruto's on his shit. But this slow build-up through the fucking arc, where, like, Jiraiya has to go and infiltrate the Rain Village. Then he infiltrates the Rain Village, and he runs into Pain. But he runs into Pain, he fights Pain, and Pain's giving him a lot of fucking problems. We get to see new moves from Jiraiya, and at the end of that fight, he's dead. The arc starts, the whole Pain arc starts with Naruto losing his master and not even knowing about it until after the fact. And they don't even find out until the Chief Sage Toad comes to the village to let the Leaf Village know Jiraiya is fucking dead, right? That's how the arc goes. And we've seen a good chunk of Pain shit during that fight with Jiraiya, but there's like a gimmick to him that like Jiraiya figures out, but he dies, and so we also have to spend the whole arc with Naruto and his depression, and then Naruto training, and then Naruto finishing his training, while Pain is also in the middle of attacking the Leaf Village. There's like 3 or 4 things going on, but Naruto and Pain have still not interact, and they don't interact until the very end of the arc, which is their fight. Their fight is the very end of the arc. So it's like this slow build up about shit. We don't even know Pain's backstory at all. We just know that, oh shit, Jiraiya had another fucking pupil, and it was Nagato, who was Pain. You're like, damn. All this slow ass build up, and it comes to a head when they finally fight, and even then, and then they throw in all that shit about how Nagato has this really interesting way of looking at the world, that if everyone experiences pain, then they all can connect to each other on an emotional level, and he wants to rule the world through fear and intimidation of the fucking tail beast. And you're like, fuck, that's crazy. Naruto, what is your response to end the cycle of hatred? Because this is the answer I came up with. And Naruto's like, I don't fucking know. Remember, the arc was just building up to them fighting. You didn't even know we were about to get this whole philosophical debate on top of his backstory and why the hell he is the way he is. Also, the fucking fight itself. That's the beauty of a shonen, is that build-up, that setup. And like I said, we've known about Pain's at least existence in some way, shape, or form, because he's been hinted and mentioned and seen casually throughout the story up until this point. And then we had to wait until the whole arc, towards the end of the arc, to get the goddamn final confrontation. Whereas in a modern shonen, like what's happening in fucking Black Clover right now, the 3 main enemy antagonists of the Spade Kingdom are attacking all the main characters currently. And you're like, what the fuck? Where it's like, well, that's the difference. Like, there's like this, but also because Naruto is a different kind of series. But the point I'm making is like proper build up and setup and progression and teases and shit. That shit can lead to absolute greatness. Another bad example is like Naruto's really well known for his tragic flashbacks and kind of like analysis of a character through their past lens selves, right? How do we figure out about Yuno's flashback in Black Clover? Oh, it's told to us in like a 2-page spread of a bunch of little moments just shot at him at once. And you're like, what the fuck? He's a pseudo main character. He's like right there next to Asta in a lot of the promotional material, and this flashback is conveyed to us, the viewer, as a bunch of little splash screens. And you're like, what the fuck is that? How is that a flashback? That's what I mean. You're speeding through the important bits. I want that shit. Now, My Hero's a little bit better with the teasing of One for All and like all the other successors and shit, right? But even then, they do that same shit where like a flashback in My Hero is like a couple of chapters, like 1 or 2 chapters. Whereas, as you know, One Piece and Naruto very much relish in like the flashbacks being like almost a mini arc within the arc. Like the whole Odin flashback we just recently got out of in One Piece. Like, that's the difference. There's nothing wrong with slow pacedness as long as you know what you're doing. Fast pacedness, I feel like I lose part of the characters and story and world when you do that. Black Clover does it, My Hero does it, and Demon Slayer does it. The only reason why I'm not picking on My Hero as much as, 1, I've been doing that through a lot of other videos recently anyway, and 2, because I think Demon Slayer is the worst at it. Demon Slayer, for some reason, can do really good flashbacks of characters, of the demons before they die. That's like the running thing with Demon Slayer. But even then, Demon Slayer only spends like a chapter or 2 on it, and you're like, bro. Now, certain demons, for the demons, it's not as big of a deal, but like for some of the main characters, you expect more for. Like a demon or the villain of that arc, you expect a little bit more for. And you also don't expect like the fun art to come out of nowhere, which is like the worst thing that can happen to a manga. Demon Slayer has that problem. Demon Slayer's fun arc literally comes out of nowhere. And you're like, what in the fuck? Actually, you could argue, like I said, same issue with My Hero. My Hero's recent arc came out of fucking nowhere. Where all of a sudden you went from like finishing some not training. Well, it is training, but I guess finishing some work study shit to boom, big ass arc, giant war. All of a sudden, literally, it felt like to give an example for those who aren't caught up to My Hero. It would be like coming out of it'd be like finishing it's almost like finishing the Foxy arc and then going into Marineford like right after. Like barely any, like maybe half a chapter of transition, and then boom, you're in Marineford. That's literally what it feels like. What it felt like in My Hero. You went from like a relatively light arc in comparison, a light-ish arc, and then boom, you're in this giant war where everybody's being thrown down, and the gauntlet is like, boom, here we go. And I'm like, okay, seems kind of quick. This also seems really early. It also seems weird that like all the fucking kids are in this, like the class 1A and 1B. This is like the first arc where they've actually directly involved them into a major conflict. Because the biggest problem My Hero's had all the way up until this point is that for some reason, even though like they're supposed to be being taught to be pro-heroes in the future, they're never like directly involved in most of these conflicts. It's always by association or by fucking accident. Like they're not meant to be there, but they are there. This is the first time they're inherently called in. But because they don't have any of the background to set up for it, it just feels like a bunch of shit going on. Also, Rabbit Girls are great. I'm just gonna throw that out there. But yeah, that's my whole argument. Is that like I'm rambling now towards the end, but yeah, just fast-paced manga. I feel like lose a lot in character and build-up, and tension and excitement. It's like I could get excited for Naruto versus Pain because that bitch was set up. I almost want to go look up the chapter numbers, but it was a good amount of chapters between the beginning of the Pain arc and like the very end with Naruto and him fighting. There was a good amount of time in between that shit, and that build-up was crazy because all you were thinking about is like, this man killed your fucking sensei, like the guy that was like a father figure to you, and it's like, bro, and then y'all were both taught under him. There was so much shit going into that fight before we even got like Nagato's whole like backstory or his mentality explanation. It was like, yes, let's do it. And then the fact that Naruto was trained to learn the fucking jutsu that Jiraiya even hadn't perfected yet. I was like, come on, let's see it. Like, I was so fucking excited. And you can't get that tension with like My Hero or Black Clover in the same way, or even Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer only had it in the form of Muzan, which I'll get into that once the manga ends, but you're ready for that punch. You're ready for it. But there's not like tension. There's not enough tension or enough to make you excited. Black Clover has been trying with this. To be fair, the Elf arc tried to. The problem is that like a lot of the villains we were introduced to were kind of one-dimensional, and then start getting more interesting until like way later in the whole saga. And My Hero's been trying to do this shit with Shigaraki that I personally don't think hits as hard as they think it does because of how janky it is. But that's a whole nother conversation too. I have a lot of things I can talk about. But yeah, so leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Sorry this video came out a little messy. Life is hard sometimes. But I'll tell you this, it is not a race. Life's a game, play to win, and remember, you're not having any fun if you're not going just a little bit crazy. Hee hee hee.